Hello, hello, and welcome to Note Investing Made Easier, the podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm here with my partner, Shawn Muneio. I'm Martin Saenz. Shawn, how are you today?
Martin, it's another great day in paradise. I'm here in Denver. As most of you know, we got our first snowfall this season. Kind of a little early this year, but we're going to skip fall, go straight to winter. There's 6 inches of snow on the ground. It was 90 on Monday. Kids were in the pool, but that's the excitement of Colorado.
Oh my goodness. Wow, good for you. Is that a record for that time of year?
No, actually, it's hard to believe, but I think September 3rd or 4th is the earliest snowfall on record, so we just missed it by a few days.
Wow. So maybe there's always next year, right?
Always next year. Yeah, crazy.
Well, we'll do a few announcements and kind of get into the topic of managing your loan servicer. So for those of you who do not know, I've written and published Cash Flow Dojo, Building Your Home on Multiple Streams of Income. That book was launched in June, and it's now out on Audible version on Amazon.com. So please pick up a copy. Leave me a review if you don't mind. The Destined Mastermind is sold out. That is set for October next month. However, we have a Las Vegas Note Investing Fundamentals Workshop happening on November 6th and 7th at the Aria Hotel in Vegas. So there are some spots left for that. So you can sign up at noteinvestingmadeeasier.com. And without further ado, let's kick it off. So managing your loan servicer, I'd have to say that the first thing that comes to mind is to self-service or to use a licensed servicer. Now, when I started note investing, myself and many others in the industry, we self-serviced up until the point where we got a loan modification, and then we would set it up with a licensed servicer. You know, the thought process is that money's not coming in, so why do you need a licensed servicer to send out year-end tax statements, monthly statements, and this and that? And so, however, things have changed a great deal in terms of the regulatory environment that's out there, among some other factors. And now I think that you have to be very cautious to self-service. I think that you have to factor in using a licensed servicer whenever you're, taking down some notes. And Shawn, do you have any thoughts just in that regard?
Yeah, Martin, I would agree. When you're thinking about servicing, that's the face of your note investing organization to your borrowers. And if you're not set up to professionally take that call and look like a larger entity than maybe you might be, it's better just to leave that work to a servicer. The other important aspect is just the contact that is made with the borrower on a monthly basis. Even though it's a non-performing loan, when the borrower goes to the mail every month, they find your statement. It didn't come from you; it came from your servicer. Now, you could be creating all that and send that out if you want to, or you can pay a servicer to do that for you. But I think it creates a professional front that is hard to replicate on your own, and it's not really that expensive, and it just totally makes sense to service it with a licensed servicer, let alone potential compliance issues that you may run into in any particular state.
You can't always quantify something. However, I've seen this hundreds of times, whereas I've either talked to a borrower or someone on the team has talked to a borrower and about, hey, you want to get a modification going. And the next move that the borrower makes is to call the servicer, and they're either validating who you are and that you have a legitimate right to be creating a loan modification, or they're trying to play the loan servicer off of you, good cop, bad cop, see what kind of deal the loan servicer will give versus what you'll give. Whatever the case, it's a validation move. Now, I've also seen the case where they call the loan servicer. They don't want to give you the time of day, so to speak, and then they call the loan servicer, and then it validates and the loan servicer says you need to call your lender to work out a loan modification, and then so that call goes to the now that call comes to you as a warm lead, so to speak.
Yeah, there's so many scams out there. Like, that's what borrowers are most worried about. Like, I know that I owe this money, but do I really owe it to these guys, or are these guys just trying to scam me? And so the more avenues you can put in place that proves to the borrower, hey, you're a professional organization, like as a professional servicer, we're a professional loss mitigation shop with our own entity. The more check that you can have for your borrower, the faster the process is going to be. Otherwise, they're going to sit here and wonder whether if you're a real organization or not, if you're just trying to steal money from them. But yeah, it's definitely a very important step.
And so, in that regard, factor in when you're buying a note, you're buying it at a discount, hopefully. And so you should factor in the cost of the workout, the cost of the servicing, and not just the loan servicer, not just the amount of money that the loan servicer is going to cost you, $15, $30, whatever it is, but also your labor. You have payroll, or you are the person that's going to be managing yourself as a note investor. So you really want to factor your time in, as so many businesses and people, they don't factor in their own time when putting together a cost model for what something's going to cost.
Yep.
So strengths and weaknesses of the loan servicer. So why is that important to understand all the different servicers that are out there and what their strengths and weaknesses are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start and kind of move backwards, so it kind of makes sense, the why we do it. But we're in the middle of taking down another large trade. Some notes in the trade, and we're determining right now which loans will be boarded with what servicers. Right, that's the step that we're doing right now. Why would we do that? Why wouldn't we just send them all to one servicer? And the reality is, we know, because we've partnered with a couple different servicers, we know the strengths and the weaknesses of each servicer. And so we're trying to make the process to bring these loans from non-performing to performing, we want to streamline that process. And so if one servicer kind of create some roadblocks for us for certain loans, well, we know that we're not going to give those loans to that servicer. We're trying to streamline the process. And so we've determined, hey, these types of loans will go to this servicer, these types of loans will go to this servicer. But in order for us to determine that, we have to first know our strengths and our weaknesses of the servicers that we've already partnered with. And so understanding the strengths and the weaknesses of your servicer can happen through multiple ways. The easiest way is just to use them for a while until their flaws or their strengths reveal themselves. Right? That's kind of an interesting process, but because we've got experience with a couple of different servicers, we know the strengths and the weaknesses. But if you don't want to go through that process, you need to ask the right questions when you're onboarding your servicer. And it starts with, what kind of loans are they going to service for you, right? And what is the process for onboarding, regular servicing, loss mitigation? Understanding what their process is will help you understand whether their process creates roadblocks for you or streamlines your process. And that's when you'll make that decision.
Yeah. And also too, what are some of the specialty programs that they may place some of your notes in, right? Is there a special licensing program for New York whereby they would put you in full loss mitigation for that, and $95 a month. Is there how do they handle bankruptcy, active bankruptcy cases? Is there special pricing for those open BK cases? Some servicers, they don't charge extra for the BK, and some do because they say they have to have special correspondence with the trustee. So you want to know that. So you may want to break off your active BK notes and place them with one servicer, and then place the non-BK notes with another servicer. And you really want to build a strategy for your company around how you use licensed servicers, because one size does not fit all.
I would agree. And the types of assets that you're servicing is very important. If you're in the business of only buying performing mortgages, you might consider how your servicer works a little differently than somebody who's going after just buying non-performing loans. If you're just buying performing loans, maybe what's important to you is reporting. Maybe what's important to you is how fast you're going to get your money. The things that are more important to you will help you make the decision as to the strengths and the weaknesses of the servicer. But you need to understand the types of assets you're boarding first in order to ask the right questions from the servicer.
So it's interesting, when I started buying notes, it didn't take me long to realize that it's not a seamless process by which the former servicer transfers data to the new servicer, which is your servicer that you're using as the note buyer, and everything is copacetic. So tell me about like the significance of that boarding process and how you manage that.
Yeah, I think if you believe that the process, you buy a loan and the process from deboarding to onboarding your servicer should be out of your realm of responsibility and solely on the responsibility of the two servicers to hash it all out, you're wrong, because you need to be involved in that process. Because once those loans get boarded, it's a nightmare to change that data. And so you need to be involved in every aspect of how those services are deboarded from the servicer, from the seller's servicer, and onboarded to your servicer. The process is so important that we actually have one of our employees is responsible for making sure that all the information that gets boarded with our servicer matches what we purchased, along with making sure that if there's any documents that are transferred between the two parties, that we grab those documents too. Because we don't know if they're going to get lost, if our servicer is going to lose them. We always want to have a backup copy of all the data that flows between the two servicers. And so we're involved in that process extensively. Don't go on autopilot when you buy a loan and assume that everything will be handled and you don't have to know about anything. Just tell me when the loan's boarded. You'll make some big mistakes if you don't get involved in that process.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the ones we've seen, as in like the last 30, 60 days. We've seen incorrect interest rates be transferred over. And if we didn't manage the process, if we didn't have dedicated staff to monitoring the flow of data, then we would have incorrect interest rates, which is not good for the borrower, because it's not good from what they legally owe. So we want to make sure we're compliant.
Yep.
And we've had to go and go through the notes, go through the collateral, go through the servicing comments, servicing correspondence, and had to have corrections made.
Yeah, and I would add, last pay dates come over incorrect. Um, Principal balance come over incorrect. These are all things that were very important when you were buying the loan, that if you take your eye off the ball, they get service transferred to your servicer, and the data is different than what you purchased. The letters, the hello, goodbye letters have already gone out to the borrowers with some of that information on it. And then, if you did have to go through loss mitigation process and go to legal, you give your attorney information that doesn't match what the servicer has. Now all of a sudden, the borrower and their attorney have something to dig in on, and try to pin your servicer against yourself on the data that's being sent out, and just creates a mess for you, and it opens the door for the borrower and their attorneys to find issues with the complaint.
And you just want the data to be correct, right? We're in a number business, and we're in a finance business, and we should have our stuff straight. Absolutely. From a borrower obligation standpoint. So some of the things is, okay, you determine strengths and weaknesses, right? I'd say people need to go to conferences, which is hard to do now with COVID. Meet all the various servicers, talk to them, find out speed of remittance, find out what their monthly costs are, find out what their customer service systems likes, find out their online portal, the strengths and weaknesses with their online portal, and figure out, what the best solution is to you. Now, but once you're set up with the servicer, you shouldn't just configure it's going to be on autopilot, right? You should have correspondence with the servicer so that they can customize solutions for you. So, what would you say to that end?
Yes, you're going to have to work with your servicer day to day and understand how their processes work, and what you're responsible for, what they're responsible for. Who, can they generate a reinstatement report for you fairly quickly? Can they generate a payoff statement for you fairly quickly? Can you do it yourself? These are all very important pieces of information. The other very important piece of information for our team is understanding the communication that's going on with the borrowers and the servicers. We see every call into our servicer. We want to know why that borrower called, what their intentions were. We see every call into our servicer as a potential lead for our asset managers. And so they could be calling in to make a payment, not necessarily a lead for the asset managers, but very important information. We want to know about it. We also want to know if people are calling in and inquiring about loss mid options, inquiring about third-party authorizations. These are all like leads inside our organization. And so getting that information to our asset managers on a daily basis from our servicers is what we require. And our asset managers want that information because they're hunting for leads. And when they get that information, they can make calls to the borrower, speed up the loss mit process, and get a loan modification in the door.
So what you're saying is, I know it sounds common sense, right? You're like, yeah, just be on top of it, right? Be on top of every communication that the borrower has to the servicer. Be on top of third-party authorization requests. Be on top of payoff requests. And yeah, because that's how you're getting paid, right? But easier said than done, in that it requires an ongoing aggressive effort from your business to make sure that it's done correctly. Now, if you have a few notes, it's one thing, right? You got a few notes, it's just, it'll take you a second to do what we're talking about. When you have hundreds of notes, then it becomes a little bit more of an effort, and you start to put full-time effort towards it. So, but however, what's significant about what we're saying is that you have a strategy in place. You have, standard operating procedures written down in terms of how you are going to monitor and engage on the information you're receiving on an ongoing basis.
And we actually had to go to our servicers and say, this is the information we want. This is the information we need. This is how often we need it. And how are you going to deliver to us? Because this is a requirement. This is what you must do. And so we've had a servicer have to create custom reports, work with their IT team to come up with a report that we get every so often that as we need it. And so it requires an understanding. Here's my process, just like you said, here's my operation, here's what I need. How do I get that information? Well, I need this piece from the servicer. Let me go get it. And then explaining to your servicer exactly what is needed and how often. It's just another step in the process.
So let's switch gears a little bit, because we've kind of been referencing working with servicers from a non-performing loan standpoint. However, there's a whole other operation when you're monitoring reperforming loans. These are loans that were formerly non-performing for some reason. However, a modification or some form of agreement has been struck, and the loans are starting to perform again, and they're still within a trial period, let's say first 12 months of reperforming status. So, they're in an incubator state, if you will. So what's the significance with RPL monitoring from a servicing standpoint?
Well, the servicer's job at that point is to send out the statements and collect payments. And our responsibility is to make sure they're doing that at every open window, right? If there's an RPL and we find out that a borrower has been trying to make payments and can't seem to get a hold of the servicer, or they're waiting too long in the queue, obviously we want to be on top of something like that as the owner of the loans. And so we're monitoring. I mean, yeah, like you said, those loans are in an incubator position right now, and we're constantly monitoring every aspect of those loans. And we have a dedicated employee who's responsible just for reperforming loans, making sure that if they're in a trial payment, that all of that has been set up correctly, that the payments are being applied correctly, so that borrower gets through that process and that loan gets labeled cured from that status it was before. And so that's extremely important for us, just to it's monitoring again the flow of the process through that loan,
because human error occurs, and it's inevitable with any servicer. And we've had it, a dozen cases where the ACH form was not set up, or the routing number was incorrect or typed in incorrectly, and the ACH just didn't run when it needed to run, right? So if you're monitoring those RPLs, those reperforming loans on an ongoing basis, you'll see that, hey, we did a modification and the payment should have been taken out on the 5th of September, and it's already the 9th of September, and there's no servicing comments, stating that the ACH form was canceled. The ACH was canceled by the borrower. So what's going on? So you reach out to the servicer, and the servicer says, well, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't set it up, or the routing number was wrong and we didn't tell you, or something like that. And, meanwhile, that's a bad showing to the borrower, right? Because you're building relationships, you're building rapport with the borrowers, and you're saying, we're going to do this, we're going to bring you back on track, and we're going to honor our commitment. they honor their side by giving you a modification that's signed and a down payment or what have you. And now it's time for us to reciprocate and show them that we're going to give them great service because we're treating them as a rock star customer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just say, what we've been talking about over the last 15 minutes all boils down to the fact that our team is laser focused on holding the servicer accountable for the work that we expect from them, the work that we pay them to do, and making sure that everything is flowing like it's supposed to. And that's what is required. If you're in the business of buying reperforming or non-performing loans, the reason those big banks don't want them is because of the effort that it takes to get these loans back on track. A laser focus. That's what our team has, and that's why I think we're so successful in it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this week's edition of Managing Your Loan Servicer. We hope you enjoy, and Shawn and I are out.
Thanks, Mark.
Take care.